Good evening. You're watching London Live News at 6 with Tanya Francis. Coming up tonight, a big bazooka of support. That's what Boris Johnson says the cost of living support package will do to help households get through bumpy times. The Jubilee weekend could give the West End an £80 million boost. New research suggests it could kickstart economic recovery in the capital. I'll have an update on London's weather in the next 10 minutes. Plus, ABBA were reunited on stage in avatar form for a unique virtual performance of their Voyage digital concert. And from one queen to another, stars of the drag scene have been offering advice ahead of the Jubilee celebrations. All of that to come, but first tonight, Boris Johnson has described the emergency cost of living support package as a big bazooka, which will support families until the surge in energy prices eases. He acknowledged the country will still face what he described as a bumpy ride due to the soaring cost of oil and gas, but that the £21 billion support package will put the country in a much stronger position for the long term.
It's a big bazooka. It's £1,200 for 8 million homes across the country, £300 extra for pensioners who are entitled to cold weather payments, another £150 for people who are on disability benefit, and of course putting more money into local government to help families who are finding things particularly tough. Look, I'm not going to pretend that this is going to fix everything for everybody immediately, and there are still going to be pressures, but it's a very, very substantial commitment by the government to getting us through what will be, I'm afraid, still a bumpy time with the increase in energy prices around the world. And what I think it will also help to do is just get us through until I believe that prices will start to abate and we'll be in a much, much stronger position.
Well, that was Boris Johnson there. Well, Rishi Sunak's announcement of the crisis fund came with speculation that it was a distraction technique from the outcomes of the Sue Gray report, with the Labour Party saying the government took too long to implement the measures, ones that they claim they had suggested first. Now, 6 soldiers and a veteran have been arrested on suspicion of drug, money lending and money laundering offences. The Ministry of Defence has said 6 Irish Guard troops and a Coldstream Guardsman veteran were arrested by the Royal Military Police as part of a planned operation. They will not be taking part in the Trooping of the Colour for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, with an investigation still ongoing. An inquest into the death of a railway worker will not examine if she was infected with COVID by a passenger who allegedly spat at her. 47-year-old Belly Majinga died in 2020 after she was reportedly coughed on and spat at by a man known as AB. He tested negative days after the incident, and a police investigation concluded that there wasn't enough evidence to show a crime had been committed. The man allegedly told Miss Majinga he was infected when the incident happened. The full inquest is due to start on the 27th of June, with the focus on whether Miss Majinga should have been shielding at the time. Now, police have arrested a man and a woman in connection with a drugs lab in Ilford. Officers carried out the search of a property on Cambridge Road in relation to the manufacture and importation of a Class A drugs. More than 50 items were seized, including a quantity of suspected drugs. The pair have been bailed pending further investigation. A man has been sentenced to 33 years in prison after murdering his landlords. Daniel Briceño Garcia has been convicted of stabbing 66-year-old Sonia Butron Calvi and 60-year-old Edgar Alquier Dassa to death at their home on Dorset Road in Lambeth. Well, Garcia was living with them at the time and renting a room in their house, along with 2 other people. When officers arrived, Garcia opened the door with blood all over his hands and told them that he was sorry. He was then arrested and charged. A Met Police task force dog has sadly died while on duty. It's believed that 6-year-old Stanley suffered with heart failure when he collapsed after chasing down 2 moped thieves. He'd been involved in over 280 charges throughout his career, with the Met saying that he was one of the very best police dogs that they've ever had. Well, there have been tributes online thanking him for his bravery and to his handler, PC Williams. Now, the Jubilee weekend could give the West End an £80 million boost. This is according to new research from the New West End Company, who believe that the 4-day celebration could help to kickstart economic recovery in the UK. They've also predicted that the celebrations will see 2.6 million domestic and international tourists visit the capital, and are calling for extended opening hours to help maximise from this busy period. Well, the recent opening of the Elizabeth line is also expected to help with economic recovery, with an estimated £400 million boost to spending. Now, this weekend is a busy one for London, especially on the roads, as on Sunday, around 100,000 cyclists will be out for the Ride London event. The 100-mile route will see cyclists set off from around 6 a.m. from Victoria Embankment and ride to Essex and then back again. It means that Westminster, Waterloo, Southwark and Tower Bridge will all be closed to vehicles throughout most of Sunday. Well, TfL have warned drivers to avoid central and east London. Well, on the subject of transport, let's just bring you this. The RMT union have called off some of the planned walkouts over Jubilee weekend. There'll no longer be strikes at Green Park and Euston Station. However, the walkout on Monday, the 6th of June, which will involve around 4,000 station staff, is still planned to go ahead. Now, next week will mark the start of a new era for the England men's cricket team. The new director of cricket, Rob Key, has already made Ben Stokes the captain of the Test side, with former New Zealand captain Brendan McCullum the new head coach. In the lead-up to his first game in charge, which is against his former side next Thursday, McCullum met the media for the first time to explain why he took on the job.
Look, to me it's a great opportunity. It's incredibly humbling to be presented with the opportunity to coach England in Test cricket, which to me is the purest form of the game. It's a game that's probably under the most amount of pressure at the moment as well, in terms of playing numbers and probably people just wanting to see Test cricket being played. And I look at this job and I think there's one country that can try and ensure that Test cricket not only sustains but also thrives, and that's England, with the traditions and the support that it gets. So it's a big job at hand. I look forward to it.
Well, new head coach of the England men's Test side, Brendan McCullum there. Now, British sailor Pip Hare has unveiled her latest solo trip around the world. The London-born yachtswoman aims to be more competitive as she'll enter the Vendée Globe race for a second time. The 48-year-old caught the public's imagination when she completed the 2020-2021 race and even received a message from Hollywood actor Russell Crowe on her birthday during the race. She is the 8th woman to complete the race and doing it in 95 days, 11 hours and 37 minutes. Well, here's what she had to say as she prepares for the race.
I finished the Vendée, the 2020 Vendée. I finished it last year and it was incredible. It was the best 3 months of my life. I love the competition. I love being in the Southern Ocean, challenging myself in that way. So I'm really looking forward to the next one, but I want it to be a lot more competitive. So I think one of the things I love about this sport is that it challenges you in every way imaginable. So it challenges you physically, mentally, emotionally. There's a load of hard and soft skills. But one of the main things is that you kind of need to constantly push yourself to the edge of kind of risk, but no further than risk, so you don't damage the boat. And if the boat does happen to get damaged, you've got to sort it all out yourself on a moving platform, on your own, in the wet, the cold and the dark normally. I don't get scared. I guess the things that scare me are the things I've never experienced before. But once I've experienced something and I know what to expect, it doesn't scare me. But what does happen is I'm kind of dealing with different levels of anxiety pretty much all the time. You know, I worry about things all the time, and it just depends kind of how much I'm worrying depending on what conditions I'm in. Now we are just kind of in the final preparations of making the boat strong and fast. I've got a couple more days of sail training where I'm kind of just making sure that I know how to get the most out of the boat, and then because it's going to be 2 weeks of solid racing on my own, the most important thing before the race is that I'm very well rested.
Well, an incredible challenge that she's taken on there. Best of luck to Pip. You can follow her journey and see how she's getting on throughout her journey. The website is piphare.com. Let's take a look at the weather now. A mild night ahead, with temperatures overnight around 13 degrees. Saturday looks like a largely dry day, with patches of sunshine in between the clouds. And as we look ahead to Sunday and Monday, light cloud and a gentle breeze, with average temperatures around 14 degrees. Now, this is one for the ABBA fans. All 4 members of the band were reunited on stage here in the capital for the first time since 1982, but not quite in the way you might imagine it. Let's take a look. Here they are as digital avatars, which have a hologram-like feel to them, or avatars, as they're being referred to. It was for the opening night of their Voyage live show, which reimagines the Swedish foursome as 21st century pop stars. Let's take a listen. Well, there you have it. We are taking a break, but next, John Johnston with the latest on what's been happening in Westminster and the world of politics, starting with reactions to the outcomes of Sue Gray's report. See you then.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
back to London Live News. Time now for a look at what's been happening in the world of politics. John Johnston from Politics Home is here to run me through the latest. John, lovely to see you. Dominated the headlines this week was the outcome of the Sue Gray report, with those redacted pages now included in her final conclusions. Needless to say, there was some pretty damning information about the Prime Minister in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole report was a bit of a surprise in some ways. You know, we'd obviously seen the Met Police investigation conclude. Boris Johnson only issued with one fine, and then we kind of got the behind-the-scenes information from Sue Gray's report, which contains some really extraordinary stuff about the behaviour in Downing Street during the lockdown. You know, we were talking about people being sick after parties, an altercation at one of them, and really a kind of culture of drinking and meetings that, you know, I don't think most people in the rest of the country could really relate to. But I think crucially, Boris Johnson not seeming to come out of it too badly. Obviously, Sue Gray said that, you know, it kind of relied on the culture coming from the top, but nothing more in terms of appropriating blame to him than what we'd already seen from the Met investigation.
And what has been the general reaction? Other MPs throughout this week have been calling for him to stand down, for Boris to stand down. But, you know, he seems to have just moved on and is pushing ahead with the political agenda.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of MPs had really kind of been holding back on making judgment on the whole situation until the publication of the Sue Gray reports. You know, we've seen 4, I think, MPs saying that they'd submitted letters of no confidence in him since the publication of the report. But it does feel like the political danger for him maybe has passed. Obviously, we don't know how many of these letters of no confidence have gone in, and it needs a certain threshold to be reached before a vote of no confidence is held in him. But I think the feeling amongst Tory MPs is that even if that was to be reached, he'd probably win it. And there's not really anybody waiting in the wings that seems like an obvious successor. So I think we'll have to see whether more MPs kind of come forward and put in letters. A lot of it relies, I think, on the reaction of their constituents. You know, many of them go back to their seats and their patches today and over the weekend. And I think that will be a big indicator of where the public mood really sits on this and will guide the reaction slightly.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk to you about the public mood, actually. And if we look at the reaction, John, you know, how much confidence do you think that there is in his ability, you know, to carry on as sort of the leader of the country? Has that confidence been tarnished by what came out in Sue Gray's reports?
I think there's certainly a lot of anger. Certainly people who were kind of hit hardest by the lockdown rules, people who sadly lost loved ones and weren't able to be with them or with their families during what must have been an incredibly horrible and difficult time for them. You know, there is a lot of anger there. And I think maybe while the political kind of risk right now has maybe passed for the Prime Minister, there's a lot of Tory MPs who seem to be quite resigned, really, to the fact that Boris Johnson's long-term reputation will be damaged by this. And even if he doesn't face a challenge right now, the Tories' kind of electoral prospects in the next election look pretty bleak unless something changes quite drastically between now and then.
Well, it brings me on quite nicely to my next point, which is that there has been speculation that the government are using recent announcements of the cost of living crisis, the measures that they're introducing, as a distraction technique from the outcome of the reports. You know, are you surprised by the Conservatives' U-turn on windfall tax and the other announcements that they've made?
As far as we can tell, you know, number 11, the Treasury, Rishi Sunak, you know, their mood's been slightly changing on this. They felt more like it's something they were probably going to have to do and facing a bit of resistance from number 10. And now, obviously, we've had the announcement the day after the Sue Gray report. The opposition say clearly that's them kind of trying to come up with something so they can get fresh headlines out of it. But it does feel like something that was maybe inevitable. Obviously, you know, it is going to make a difference in some ways to the cost of living, but I think the opposition's still pressing for a lot more to be done.
Yeah, on that, what has been the general reaction, not only to that windfall tax, but also to the other measures that have been introduced around supporting families across the UK, but a lot also the most vulnerable of the households across the UK?
Yeah, I think there was some surprise at how far Rishi Sunak actually went. You know, we were maybe expecting the windfall tax and for that to be used to kind of help people who are most sort of feeling the squeeze from the cost of living. But he did go a bit further, you know, taking this £200 energy bill relief that was then going to be paid back over a number of years. He's doubled that and said, actually, no one will have to repay that. And then we have sort of specific individual one-off £650 payments to those who are on benefits. You know, that's again quite a big step. The response from Tory MPs quite mixed, really. I think some think it doesn't go far enough, but others really angry that the government, during a time of rising inflation, are spending a lot more money, some of which will have to come from borrowing because it can't all be covered just by the energy profits levy, as they have branded it, rather than calling it a windfall tax as the opposition had. So I think a bit of a mixed reaction on the Tory benches to that. Some quite happy, some very, very unhappy that the Treasury have decided to take this step now.
Yeah, so mixed reaction. John, thank you very much.
Thanks.
John Johnston there with the latest from Westminster, the fallout of the Sue Gray reports and recent announcements made about the measures to help with the cost of living crisis. Well, on that topic, let's bring you this. Despite the significant increases in UK living costs, it's not the biggest challenge for Londoners hosting Ukrainian refugees, according to new research. Tech firm Pocket Talk, who distributed language translation devices on the Polish border, found hosts in the capital are most in need of support with communication. Henry has been speaking to the company's general manager about the importance of language when welcoming refugees into their homes and their efforts to donate the devices.
What we found is that the hosts in London are really exceptional and that they're trying to do their best to find any way they can to make their guests more comfortable, to build relationships with them. And despite rising cost, people are concerned about communicating with people who speak an entirely different language in their home.
The communication barrier, it's been created. How are you going to bridge that gap?
One thing we've been very impressed with everyone in the UK is that they're willing to take on the challenge. And whether it's learning from cookbooks or whether it's learning from a simple dictionary, everyone's up for the challenge and is really embracing this in a very robust way. What we do is we build a product called Pocket Talk. And what it is a simple, handheld, two-way translation device, microphones on both sides, but with a touch of a button, it allows you to translate English into Ukrainian and Ukrainian into English. And what happens is it's the difference between saying, good morning, how are you, to really having discussions and having conversations and getting to know people and understanding their story. Nothing delights people more than having conversations in their own language.
They've obviously suffered such a horrible last few months. How important is it that we make them feel welcome and we try and, it's not just a one-way street, it's a two-way street?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And making people feel welcome in the early stages is going to be just a lot about, is this a comfortable place? Is this a safe place? Do I feel good here? Can I have my children here? But as time goes on, really making them feel welcome is letting them know that we appreciate and understand your language and culture. And we're going to avail ourselves of tools to help us out. Because I can't be expected to learn Ukrainian. You can't be expected to learn English. So devices such as the one which I've shown have really, really been beneficial in making these kind of relationships much more enduring beyond greetings and salutations. We deployed these immediately to the front line in Poland. We deployed these immediately to Afghanistan when it was needed during the crisis there. And we've learned so much about language and humanity and building those connections and relationships. And using human translators is helpful, but it often takes away from just the one-on-one discussion, being more comfortable opening up to you. And so availing yourself of these kind of tools really is, I think, a game changer. And we live in a great age where technology like this is available.
With the distribution process, how are you getting these, very small machines to the people who need it most?
Yeah, whenever we find situations that are pressing and situations that are urgent, we do donate the product. And in the case of when we began to see the refugees pouring into Poland and then realized that they don't speak the same language and everyone was trying to help. And one of our observations is these people had just gone through a horrific journey. And the thing they needed the most was to be heard, to talk to somebody. Blankets and clothes were all fine. But right now I have a medical condition. I can't find my mom. I don't know where my kids are. Is my hometown still there? And it was those kind of, the hierarchy of human needs. Language was first and foremost. And I think everybody did such a tremendous job at getting things to the front line. However, getting conversations to the front line really turned out to be the most pressing. From there, we continue to learn and we continue to do research in London. We want to be on the front line and we want to be helpful.
Well, there you have it, Henry there, talking to the man behind those devices, helping with the communication issues between the refugees and the people that are hosting them. You're watching London Live News with Tanya Francis. A reminder of our top story coming up after the break. Plus, from Downing Street to Abbey Road, we'll hear from Tony Blair's former sound engineer on his career as a musician and his latest single.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back. A reminder of our top story this evening. Boris Johnson has described the emergency cost of living support package as a big bazooka, which will support families until the surge in energy prices eases. Well, he acknowledged the country will still face what he described as a bumpy ride due to the soaring cost of oil and gas, but that the £21 billion support package will put the country in a much stronger position for the long term.
It's a big bazooka. It's £1,200 for 8 million homes across the country. £300 extra for pensioners who are entitled to cold weather payments. Another £150 for people who are on disability benefit, and of course putting more money into local government to help families who are finding things particularly tough. Look, I'm not going to pretend that this is going to fix everything for everybody immediately, and there are still going to be pressures, but it's a very, very substantial commitment by the government to getting us through what will be, I'm afraid, still a bumpy time with the increase in energy prices around the world. And what I think it will also help to do is just get us through until I believe that prices will start to abate and we'll be in a much, much stronger position.
Now, 6 soldiers and a veteran have been arrested on suspicion of drug, money lending and money laundering offences. The Ministry of Defence has said 6 Irish Guard troops and a Coldstream Guardsman veteran were arrested by the Royal Military Police as part of a planned operation. They will not be taking part in the trooping of the colour for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, with an investigation still ongoing. An inquest into the death of a railway worker will not examine if she was infected with COVID by a passenger who allegedly spat at her. 47-year-old Belly Majinga died in 2020 after she was reportedly coughed on and spat at by a man known as AB. He tested negative days after the incident, and a police investigation concluded that there wasn't enough evidence to show a crime had been committed. The man allegedly told Miss Majinga he was infected when the incident happened. The full inquest is due to start on the 27th of June, with the focus on whether Miss Majinga should have been shielding at the time. Now, police have arrested a man and a woman in connection with a drugs lab in Ilford. Officers carried out the search of a property on Cambridge Road in relation to the manufacture and importation of Class A drugs. More than 50 items were seized, including a quantity of suspected drugs. The pair have been bailed pending further investigation. A man has been sentenced to 33 years in prison after murdering his landlords. Daniel Briceño Garcia has been convicted of stabbing 66-year-old Sonia Butron Calvi and 60-year-old Edgar Alquier Dassa to death at their home on Dorset Road in Lambeth. Well, Garcia was living with them at the time and renting a room in their house, along with 2 other people. When officers arrived, Garcia opened the door with blood all over his hands and told them that he was sorry. He was then arrested and charged. A Met Police task force dog has sadly died while on duty. It's believed that 6-year-old Stanley suffered with heart failure when he collapsed after chasing down 2 moped thieves. He'd been involved in over 280 charges throughout his career, with the Met saying that he was one of the very best police dogs that they've ever had. Well, there have been tributes online thanking him for his bravery and to his handler, PC Williams. Now, the Jubilee weekend could give the West End an £80 million boost. This is according to new research from the New West End Company, who believe that the 4-day celebration could help to kickstart economic recovery in the UK. They've also predicted that the celebrations will see 2.6 million domestic and international tourists visit the capital, and are calling for extended opening hours to help maximise from this busy period. Well, the recent opening of the Elizabeth line is also expected to help with economic recovery, with an estimated £400 million boost to spending. Now, from Downing Street to Abbey Road, Tony Blair's former sound engineer turned musician came in to talk about his latest single and what made him change careers. Finlay Morton has had years on the road with some of the UK's most influential politicians, but today he was here to tell us about his new single, Move Mountains. Before we hear from him, let's take a listen.
And now I'm left standing in the rain. Feels like I'm slowly going insane. Just want to see your face again. If I could move mountains, if I could move, if I could move.
Finlay, there you have it. It's like we've morphed you from the screen onto the sofa. Nice to see you. Tell me about this music video. This is for your latest single, Move Mountains.
Yep.
What was the inspiration behind writing the piece and the video and the performance within it?
Well, we wrote the piece during lockdown, and we recorded it, sort of safely distanced and all that, and so it's about whatever you want it to mean. Different songs mean different things to different people. So for me, it was about a guy who's, split up with his partner, but he's trying to get back to meet her again, but not entirely sure if that's going to happen.
Music comes often from the more difficult times in life, and especially during lockdown, it was a difficult time for everyone. It gave us a lot of time to think. But I want to ask you about your career, because you've had a really interesting career, and it didn't necessarily start with music, or at least not your full-time career.
Yep.
Was it always the plan to become a musician?
Yeah, well, I've been playing guitar and writing songs since I was about 10 or 11, so that's a long time. So yeah, it's always been a passion of mine, and it's something I've been able to concentrate on in the last few years, which is great.
And at what point did you make that switch? Because you were a sound engineer for Number 10 for many PMs. How many was it? 4?
Yeah. It was Thatcher, Major, Blair, Brown, and the first bit of Cameron. So 5, I guess, 4.5.
Yeah, and from there, at some point, you thought, you know what? Now I need to go back to my sort of original passion. I've been sidetracked for 30 years or however long it was.
Yeah, well, the problem with being in a sort of high-profile role is that everything's it's got to happen now, and it's very difficult to do any planning for the musical stuff. So because that's always arranged months and months and months in advance. So I just took a step back from doing the sort of day-to-day techie work, and started concentrating on music. So I've been recording pretty much for 10 years now. So.
Let's talk more about that career in sound engineering for Number 10. How did that come about? When did you first get started?
I sort of landed a job just as a freelance sound engineer through the now defunct Central Office of Information, and a friend of mine ran a department there, and asked if I would go and help on a job, and it just kind of became a constant thing, and I sort of gradually became the guy that the Downing Street crew were happy to have on their jobs. So I did loads of press conferences and loads of travel and foreign trips and stuff like that. Yeah.
It's funny how you sort of make plans and then life happens.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And then years later, you like sort of take stock as to what's happening. Was there any sort of at any point that you thought, actually, I want to step away from this, but I can't, or did you always know that you would come back to music?
Eventually, I think anybody that's ever been involved with music has always, that's their true love, and that's where you always go back to.
Well, that was Finlay Morton there. If you want to hear more of his music, his latest single is out now. We are headed for a short break, but next, James is on the sofa with two queens of the drag world. Find out what he got up to with Trixie Mattel and Katya next.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
welcome back to the show. Now next, two of the world's most famous drag queens who made their name on the now iconic show RuPaul's Drag Race have teamed up as a double act for a global tour. Now it's Trixie Mattel and Katya will be at Wembley Arena in November before travelling around Europe. It'll make them the only drag pairing ever to headline at the venue. What can you expect from the show? Well, James had an interesting time finding out just what exactly the duo will be performing.
The question would be, what can audiences not expect? And it's zero. We pretty much cover the full range of human emotion and experience from top to bottom. It's a comprehensive, exhaustive, multimedia display of pretty much, you know, everything you can imagine from life in the Fertile Crescent in Mesopotamia up until the current day right here in London. It's the whole, it's from soup to nuts, from top to bottom, from A to Z, alpha to omega. It's everything, and yet it's nothing.
Trixie, expand on that. Everything.
Well, I mean, just to translate, it's A to Z.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's so embarrassing.
It's anthropological musical theater.
Right.
Imagine if you went to see Chicago.
In Detroit.
But then a helicopter landed and Laura Dern is telling you to cover up the site.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's
Yeah.
dinosaur bones being excavated.
Yeah.
But luckily we have bloodthirsty fans
Yeah.
who trust us, and they know to expect very little.
Yeah.
And so when we've actually produced a stunning spectacle like this show, we blow their wigs off every night. In the States, they beat the walls. The whole show was sold out every single night. So here they have better taste.
Yeah.
So I think.
And a sense of humor, which comes in handy. No, to be perfectly frank, it's a live theatrical multimedia extravaganza that features acting, singing, dancing, fights, fist brawls of many types, heavenly lifts.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil anything, but it's dry, and then it's wet. It's low, and then it's high. It's behind the scenes, but then it's front and center.
Yeah.
It's erotic, and then it's repulsive. So it's a lot of contrast. It's a lot of textures. It's a lot of flavors. It's a lot of unpredictable kind of
And a lot of, at least in the States, a lot of sweating. And I know that here you have a lot of historical theaters, and historical usually means no air conditioning. So
You should be all right at Wembley.
I'm concerned about the sweating, but I'm ready.
Yeah.
So we've done the show. We've done about 25 to 30 shows already in the United States, and you know, the human body the human body has an enormous ability to adapt. Mine does not, however. So what I can say with all certainty is that I will be soaking wet. My body will achieve will display a level of perspiration that should concern doctors, lawyers, cardiologists, anthropologists. Yeah. Tom, Dick, and Harry.
There's lifeboats in the audience. Women and children first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Literally, she said it the other day.
Beautiful.
You know when in the
Thank
Titanic, when the water's rushing through and all the deck chairs are flying and they're playing the violins. That's me.
That's the back sweat.
That's me. That's the back sweat.
Well, tell us a little about how you two came together, because you both found fame in your own right, and then now you're sort of performing as a double act.
Well,
how did that all start?
Did you ever go to gym class? Like
well,
PE?
we called it PE here, yeah.
So you remember how, like, you have to pick partners, and everyone picks someone, and there's two people left.
Yeah.
And there you are,
Yeah.
with two wigs.
Yeah.
But you know what I've learned through this? I can work with anyone. You know what I mean? Like, the prognosis can be very grim, and I can find a way to choke a laugh out of that rubber chicken.
So are you inferring that you were kind of forced together and you've made the most of it? Or did you find each other?
No, we seriously, we chose each other.
Yeah.
We chose each other. You know, I mean, it's like
we're acquaintances.
Yeah.
When the money started coming in, we became friends.
Yeah.
When the check cleared on this tour,
Mama,
she became my best friend.
Yes, it's like
I'm trying to keep her working because she's trying to close on a house right now, and I'm trying to get her in debt so that I can be like, how about another tour? How about we get you back on camera? You have that huge mortgage now. You need the money, because if she has enough money, she won't work.
And I was just discussing this with the producer. I'm a simple girl with very simple tastes and pleasures. All I want to do is smoke cigarettes and look at the sky.
Yes.
And that doesn't cost a lot of money, you know, maybe $10 a day, give or take. And, but yeah, so I can see, you know, when people say, you know, oh, I can see my retirement on the horizon, mine's in the rearview mirror. So like the clock is ticking. But yeah, like she said, we work so well together, and if the paycheck is really high, we're basically
it's big enough,
we're soulmates.
it's right.
Yeah, if the money's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and we think we're funny.
Yeah.
Which I think that's good.
Yeah. But also we can't fake it. The good thing is that the bad thing is that we're bad actors, but the good thing is that our success is we're successful improvisers. Do you know what I mean? Like which means
which is why this show is quite a feat. We had to memorize 90 pages of text.
Yeah.
That's
It's the
nearly
Iliad. It's
half a
Homer's
film
Iliad.
now.
Yeah, and 30 of those pages are literally just pictures.
We're used to sitting in very flattering lighting, as shown here.
Yeah.
Yes.
And sitting and making up what we say as we go.
Yeah.
This is standing, dancing, memorizing, singing,
words,
acting,
Yes.
reacting. Sometimes I have to say a whole sentence from the start to the finish, and you have to hear every syllable. That's tough for me.
Yeah.
You ever on stage on your own? Do you ever do your own bit where you're just like, okay, right, this is my half hour now. I don't want you in this.
Oh yes.
Well, we've done that. Yeah.
This is actually our first time touring together. We normally tour filling large venues as solo acts, which is why this tour is so ambitious, getting to do Wembley and so many cool arenas, because together, I mean, it's
huge
Sonny and Cher.
arena,
Yeah. Well, it's like, you know, it's that old expression, why have one when you can have two twice the price?
Yes, that
You know?
old one.
Yeah.
Bit like Super Nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, serious question now, guys. Let's talk about drag and how big it's become. Obviously, you guys made your names on RuPaul's Drag Race in the US. I think there was about 10 seasons before it even came over here, and it became big here.
Yeah.
So, like, it kind of made it massive over here as well. What do you reckon of the scene? Have you seen a lot of our drag queens, and how do they differ from you guys? Like, is it the humour that's really different, or like?
We were just talking about this in the car. So, I will say this. So, yeah, just yesterday I was walking through Soho, and I spotted 3 queens out having a cigarette. Maybe they were doing a show.
Smoking a fag.
Smoking a fag.
Looking in the sky.
Trio of lasses. Is that Irish? I don't know. But 3 girls smoking cigarettes. They looked stunning, which was a departure from the usual Crunch and Munch, Kennel Club, Westminster dog show that you usually get, because the girls here they are extremely funny. They are quick-witted.
Yeah.
They can tell a story, they can sing a song, they can dance a dance, but it is woof. You know, it is not easy on the eyes. But you know, but that's like kind of the tradition here. It's like big, loud makeup, crazy. Well,
we don't do that in America. We don't do big makeup. We don't do big hair. I will say the performers here are more like New York drag queens, where they're used to being handed a microphone. They have to fill a whole hour.
Yeah.
So you have to be a better performer to be a drag queen here, I think.
The talent
Whereas in the
here,
States, you can just kind of be pretty.
Well,
or
yeah,
naked.
because you can be on Instagram. Like you can forge your whole career on an app. We're just showing your makeup skills. But here, I mean, at least in the last 20 years and before, you're in the pub, you're dealing with drunk people who don't want to listen, you're having your like trial by fire, learning how to really entertain, and you're sweating,
Finally, guys, I could do this all day, but one last question. Our Queen, it's our Jubilee coming up soon, next week, in fact. From one queen to another, have you got a message for 70 years on the throne for our special queen?
She should take some time off. She should go on vacation, go to Boca Raton.
Go to Gran Canaria, or whatever, a Boca. Yeah.
Go on a cruise, go on a Disney cruise.
Yeah.
Finally, guys, Disney cruise. Finally, guys, just remind us when you're in London.
Oh, that's a great question. It's really just.
It's nebulous. We come
it might be the 5th of November, I think.
I think it's right around November 5th.
I think it might be around that time, and I think it's in Wembley at the SSE
It surely
Arena.
is.
I don't want to jinx us. I hope the day we're here, there's a shred of sunlight.
There will be. Well, you said you got some yesterday, so
So we're good for another 12 years.
You won't get some in November.
Well, just in
though,
case, I'm going to spray, just like the girls up in Newcastle, I'm going to spray myself dark orange.
Yes, the rub-in tan situation here.
Yeah.
It's big. It's
Ooh.
big. It needs to be.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, I get it. Look at me. I'm pretty much, I got a spray tan before I came.
Well, there you have it, Trixie and Katya live at the SSE Arena on the 5th of November. Let's give you an update on the weather now. A mild night ahead with temperatures overnight around 13 degrees. Saturday looks like a largely dry day with patches of sunshine in between the cloud. And as we look ahead to Sunday and Monday, light cloud and a gentle breeze with average temperatures around 14 degrees. Well, that's all from us this evening. We'll be back in the morning with London Weekend, a look back at some of the main talking points from across the capital this week. You can also keep up to date by following us on social media at London Live. Have a great weekend.